that space.
Cool. We'll definitely have to talk about running later because I need some recommendations on running shoes. I've been going the cheapo route, and I know it's been like counterproductive for me. So I like to get like a top 2 or 3 that you kind of lean back on or look for when it comes to getting gear. So we'll save that as like a bookend at the tail end of our conversation.
That sounds good.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let me bring up what we were looking at before. As long as Zoom cooperates, then we should be good to go. Hang on a second. Please hold while the operator handles your call. Right. So, I mean, Hailey, are you seeing yourself with a little pink little DL that kind of goes into it? Yes.
All right. And what I'll do is I'm going to ask you to follow me so that you're going to see what I'm seeing in the mural canvas because I have it open too.
Got it.
So yeah, I think, and I'm so excited to share this today because I'm going to take you guys through, you get a sneak preview of a talk that I am giving at a conference at the end of November in Germany called Digitale Leute. And it is a talk, I'm not speaking in German, but it is based in Germany, talks in English and German. And it's all about this concept of how people meet and connect to develop products and do marketing and these different functions in companies. And what I would love to do is not only share this with you today, and of course, answer any questions you have, but also I'd love some feedback, honestly. I think this is a great space to learn and make sure that the message connects really well with that audience. So as we're going through, as you guys are involved in this journey with me, it's going to be very unscripted, a little rough, but I'd love to learn what you guys think and let's give it a try.
So one sec, I got to share this share again because for some reason it said it didn't like it. So I'm going to go for it again. And
all right,
now you see something completely different. Hang on.
Yeah.
All right, bam. Now we're sharing. We're good.
Perfect. All right. So why don't we, so what I'm going to do now is I'll start jumping in, and at a certain point later on, you'll see what happens, but you'll be involved as well.
Got it.
All right. So let's have a meeting. You could have spent this time today doing anything else at your work, but you chose to be here with me, and it's awesome. I truly care about making this meeting really productive and engaging for you. And if I didn't care, then I could have made this like any other meeting you might have in your workday. I could talk the whole time and not let you say anything. You'd probably get bored and start checking email or doing other work. And towards the end, we might agree on some action items, but you really wouldn't have heard anything I said. We'd finish the meeting and we'd go back to work and we'd forget anything that even happened. Does this sound a little bit familiar to you?
Yes, it does.
I'm sorry. It doesn't mean like this. See, that's what it would look like. I don't want to have it like that with PowerPoint. We have so many of these unproductive meetings. It's a little bit tragic how much they happen. We actually waste an average of 31 hours per month in unproductive meetings where we're daydreaming, we're sleeping, or we're doing other work. And I like the guy there who 96% of you guys miss your meetings. You just don't show up. That's actually 31 hours is about twice the time it will take me to travel from Los Angeles to Germany. And I'll probably have a more productive time on the airplane than I would in that many meetings. We love to hate meetings, but why do we meet if we hate them so much? Well, when meetings go really well.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Pause. Here we go. Okay.
No worries. So when meetings go really well, they help our teams collaborate, they help us align, and we make a lot of progress. But unfortunately, they're not that frequent. Most of our meetings happen with cross-functional teams, and that can feel like a wrestling match. In one corner, you have the designers. They're angry at the developers because they've ruined the user experience during production. In the other corner, you have those developers, and the developers are frustrated because the designers are out of touch with what's possible to actually build. And the product managers, well, they're those referees standing over there or in the middle, and they're kind of juggling the goals of these two critical functions who need to work in harmony.
And if I may add it, Hailey, there's going to be somebody from the highest paid person's opinion is going to come into that ring with a steel chair and start clubbing people because they want to feel like they're in charge.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to add that. That's so true. They're just going to bring like an extra thing that was not allowed, but here we are.
Yes.
So I actually started my career, like many of you, working in an office where most of my meetings happened in a conference room and looked a lot like this. So some of my teammates would be gathered at a table, but others were spread out in different locations. And a lot of them were actually international. Those people had to dial in using that phone there in the middle. And a lot of us would be huddled around there talking into the machine, making sure they could hear us. And most of the time it was a disaster, actually, because they missed a lot of important information. And actually collaboration was pretty much impossible because we couldn't meet face to face. They couldn't see what was happening in the room. And so it was pretty disengaging for them. Today, my meetings look a lot like this. And this is actually yesterday during the Global Virtual Design Sprint. So I work on a cross-functional team that is spread out around the world. Almost all my meetings look just like this, people getting together and working together in the same shared digital space. If you think about it, I'm a little bit of an extreme case since my team is completely remote, but we're all remote workers in some way, shape, or form. Have you ever checked your email on the train, or have you had a customer phone call while you weren't in the office? This is distributed or remote work. And this type of work has increased by 159% in the last 12 years. Pretty crazy.
And it's going up exponentially, at least the data shows from the most recent years.
It's pretty nuts how quickly it's expanding. And a lot of it's happening because people just want to have that flexibility to work together. So a lot of times we're seeing, as you can see here, 40% of our teams are hybrids. So they're a mix of in-person and remote workers, kind of like I was. And then 16% of teams are completely remote like mine. And as we mentioned, it's really quickly increasing on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that's happening is because we want that option. In a survey, 77% of people said having a flexible job would allow them to be healthier. So things like eat better, exercise, have more family time. And 80% of people said that they feel less stressed when they actually are able to work remote or have that option. And for companies that allow remote work or digital work in some way, they experience 25% less turnover for their employees. So cross-functional teams, as you can see, they're changing, and distributed teams, they're changing how we meet. And ultimately, we need to respond to that change by thinking about new ways to connect and collaborate. So let's start now in this meeting. We have different goals and different strengths and different skills, and we can't gather around a table to work face-to-face. So I'm going to challenge you to work in a different way. It's going to be messy and it's going to be a little chaotic, but that's the beauty of collaboration. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take you on a journey through what it looks like and feels like to experience digital and visual collaboration. I'm going to ask you to share what makes this type of collaboration hard and what makes it fantastic. And yes, this is a meeting where you need to participate. We'll unpack elements of digital and visual collaboration, kind of those three entities on their own. Throughout this meeting, I'll ask you to keep contributing to the conversation on this canvas you guys are seeing right now. By the end, I want to make sure you have the tools and the knowledge and the community around you to make digital and visual collaboration happen in your job. So what I'm going to do is get this link to the canvas, and I'm going to put it in the chat here. And I want all of you guys to jump in and join me.
So in chat, you're talking about the Zoom chat, correct?
Yeah, that's right, the Zoom chat.
So do you also want this to go out onto the YouTube stream that we're doing here?
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. If people are watching on the YouTube stream, they can join in too.
Okay. I'm going to, part of it is going to be me showing my screen and going to the admin side of the YouTube side. So if that's all right with you, I can do that.
That's totally fine.
All right. In fact, I'll pause the share just briefly and go into the other window and do that. So let's see. By the way, what are you drinking? I just want to know. Is that, it's just
Oh,
water?
just water.
Okay.
Yeah, I always have my water bottle with me at home, and while I'm working on my laptop, just make sure I'm staying hydrated.
Got it. Okay.
I'm sorry it's not more interesting, like, I don't know, a Moscow Mule or something.
Or you say, well, I have a heavy mix of tea and kombucha that I
No,
delicately brew
that
in
would be
the morning. Yeah.
it's so true, like matcha tea or something. No, I'm not that fancy.
So I'm going to go ahead and, since I'm in this mural, I'm going to go here. Now,
Okay.
while we're waiting for people, the two of us can kind of have a conversation about this. So
Yeah.
in terms of, share why digital and visual is awesome, and you can learn from the community. So part of what I do with the community and virtual, since this is part of my thesis with design sprints, is that the main thing is that there's less friction as opposed to being in person. So in the absence of people coming together on this and kind of joining in, because so far that we have, who do we have? We have anonymous shrimp, I think. Yes?
Anonymous
We have
squid.
We have a squid. Where's the squid? Now we're trying to find the squid. He's joined, but we're trying to figure it out.
So squid, I'm gonna ask you to, or I'm gonna summon you so you guys are all seeing what I'm seeing right now.
Got it.
It's something I wish I had for my in-person meetings or workshops. But basically, so, and Robert, feel free to add to this too. Basically, what I want you guys to do to add to the conversation is, you'll see there are two sticky notes next to each other. On one of the sticky notes, you're gonna add your name, like you've done, Robert. And then the second sticky note, I would love to know, why did you come to this talk today?
Got it. Well, my reasons are obvious, but I could say like an underlying reason is because I'm a big fan of remote.
Woohoo!
Hey, it's Kim. Kim's a frequent. You're loving Mural and you want to learn more about it in a row.
Nice.
Anyway,
Awesome.
okay.
We'll definitely do that. Happy to talk through anything that is of interest to you too.
Cool.
All right. So let's talk a little bit then about digital collaboration, kind of like the digital side of digital and visual collaboration. So digital collaboration, it involves using cloud-based tools and technology to create with people. So I mentioned my team is fully remote, and we're distributed across the United States, Europe, and Latin America. We work on different time schedules, and we work on different teams and different functions. So we're relying on a combination of cloud-based solutions to make real-time work happen. And I want to share an example of what a day in my work life looks like. And while I'm doing this, I'm actually going to have you share some of your perspectives on digital collaboration. So let me show you guys what that will look like. So I'm going to, let me summon you guys again in the canvas. So you'll see here, there's these different sticky notes in the last, in this bottom section. And I'd love to know a couple things. So reflect back on the last 2 weeks of your job, basically, where you had to use digital tools or you had to do some sort of collaboration digitally. And I'd love to know, and have you type in what went well. So you can simply double click on the pink sticky note, type in what went well, what didn't go well in this experience, and then what do you think are some things you can improve about that experience? So not necessarily ideas, but just opportunities for you to make that work better going forward.
Hailey, since Kim was part of the Global Virtual Design Sprint, maybe this can be centric to that, where she can basically give some feedback around what went well, what didn't go well, and what we can improve. Would that help in terms of context?
Yeah, definitely. If that's, that's immediately something that comes to mind for thinking about remote collaboration, for sure.
Yeah, because we did 15 of those last week. So I think she was a part of a few of them. So she could basically give her perspective on it.
Great. All right, I see our squid typing in there, so that's perfect.
All right. Something else you would like me to take part in?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and do that.
All right. While you guys are doing that, I'm actually gonna take you through a little bit through what that journey looks like. So I'll come back after and see what you guys have shared.
Sure.
So In the morning, I am making my cup of coffee and I check my email on my phone and I kind of prioritize what I need to do. So then I log into my laptop at my desk, which is located at my house, and I open up Slack. And that lets me catch up with my teammates that are in Europe and had done a lot of work before I'm there. So it's usually the end of their day. We'll message back and forth in Slack about a project. Since it's 9 o'clock in the morning for me in California, my teammate in New Jersey, it's noon for her, so she's at lunch. In her break, I can review some of her proposals or some content that she needed, and then we can review that on a break. After lunch, I usually move over to a coffee shop or somewhere else in the community, and we'll have a daily stand-up meeting as a team. And we'll actually use a mural canvas just like this for where everybody's getting together in the same canvas to talk about blockers, tasks, and ideas for the project. We'll usually use a video conferencing tool like this to talk, and everyone's expected to be on camera. During that call, we can agree on next steps and any work we need to do after the meeting. There's actually a running trail near my apartment, so I usually take my afternoon break to go for a run. And I can get my work done after that meeting and after that running break in Google Docs and a mural and share it with my teammates. So when they come back at their morning, they can review the content. It's great because there's no confusion, there's no boredom, and there's a lot of flexibility. I've worked from home, as I mentioned. I've worked from a beach, and I've had teammates work from a boat, a tent. One was riding a bike, and even taking care of kids and loved ones. We can share a lot of information across teams and with any device from anywhere. Let me see. I'm curious to see what you guys had for your experience. Okay, so Kim, you were saying that it's productive, good ideation, amazed at what's accomplished. Mural sometimes a struggle to serve from their clients. Yep, with bandwidth. Okay, an overall in real time recession. Okay, more of a nice to have. Very interesting. Okay, so this is all really helpful, and it's interesting to see kind of different points to share out. And also to kind of highlight what's hard and what's great, because digital collaboration, as you guys know, it's not always ideal. A lot of my meetings have been derailed when, as you mentioned, bandwidth is poor, or a call drops, or dogs are barking in the background. I think a lot of us think about digital work and we fear being, I don't know if you've heard this guy where he's on a remote meeting that's projected on the BBC, and his kids come in and his nanny runs in, and it's embarrassing for him. And we don't want to have that vulnerability. But we are digital workers. I'm a digital worker. You are a digital worker. And though I mentioned I'm an extreme case of that, it's a new way of working. And so I want to share some of my tips and advice for making digital work a success.
So Hailey, really fast, we're still kind of looking at the last thing that we did. If you want to summon us as you're kind of going through the outline, then probably summon everyone, at least on my share. That way you can see it. So there you go. Now we can actually see it.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert. So yeah, this is, I don't know if you have seen this famous, infamous guy on the news when he had his kids running in through the press call. But yeah, so I think I mentioned here some of my recommendations for avoiding things like that, or trying to alleviate some of that stress as much as possible. So make technology backup plans. I know bandwidth connections can be hard, so make sure you build some time in for people to get comfortable with a tool or to join by phone. So giving a lot of these different options, it adds more flexibility into the call so people can stay engaged and still be part of the experience. Also, make sure you agree and you stick to using the same cloud technologies. There are so many different technologies out there for messaging, for sharing video, for word processing. But if the team, no matter what function you are, agrees on the same ones you want to use in your project, it will make everyone's lives so much easier and just make work really smooth. Also, make sure when you meet, you're giving your team a chance to have as much face time as possible, especially if everybody's remote. So I realize it's not always ideal to have to turn your camera on, but even if you feel like you're not looking so great today, really all you have to think about is your head and your shoulders, and be prepared. So you can see my team, this is actually most of our company right here, on camera, having some fun together. It really drives that engagement.
What do you use to create those small videos? Have you used Snagit or some other tool?
I use Snagit. Yeah, you can see I have Snagit, or you can't see my screen, but I have Snagit on all the time, basically, to capture stuff like that and save it as a GIF.
Got it.
Yeah. And it's fun to capture those little moments. And finally, be flexible. I think that people believe working from anywhere is a hindrance, but it really doesn't impact the quality of the work. When you let people work from anywhere, it means you trust them to work in a way that fits their needs and their schedule. I think it's important to agree on the guidelines for your team about when you need to be there to connect real time, but really give the team a chance to work together and work alone. So like think about asynchronous collaboration. When I talk to a lot of people about my work on a cross-functional team, they ask me if I worry about people not paying attention, or, how do I know people aren't checking their email or doing something else? Well, it's because I really do a lot of work to set a clear purpose and a goal for any of my meetings. I allow everyone to join and capture notes in a shared space like we are, and I trust that my team is invested in the success of a project because we've built a vision for that project together.
Yeah. One thing I could add to that also is that if you're going to call a meeting, make sure it's tied to a decision. So a lot of times meetings can be informational, which argues the question, is it better if that meeting could have been done just basically by passing information like offline or passively? Most of the time, if you can not only set an agenda for what people should expect, but also have a decision that ties everyone together so that you're going to be making a decision to move in a particular direction, then there's more meaning behind kind of getting people together.
Right. To your point, it's, if this could have been done over email rather than a meeting, it's probably, and you had to make it just, yeah, I guess that's where I think, like, why do we have to meet? Okay, we had to meet to make a decision. Like, that's a really important thing to talk through the nuances of in person. So I love that one too. I just added that, actually.
Yeah, Jason Fried's a big, as articles and other things about just basically how unproductive meetings are. So they follow the same thing. It's like you're basically taking away people's time, like it's their calendar. They choose to use with the time what they want. But at the same token, if you're going to bring people together, you've got to give them a reason why you are, and it's got to be something moving forward. Otherwise, yeah, they could be spending their time doing work.
Exactly. So I want to shift over to kind of the second part of this, part of 3, visual. So I think of digital and visual as kind of the 2 rock stars that make collaboration possible. They're basically on stage making the work happen, and I kind of feel in a lot of ways like a crazy fan, really desperate to know how to do what they do. And even people like you mentioned, Jason Fried or Daniel Stillman, others who just know how to make these really valuable, incredible meetings. I'm just like, how do you do that? And I'm desperate to learn it.
So would you say the drummer is emotional or mental?
The drummer is emotional or mental?
In terms of either visual or digital, what would be the third tier?
Oh,
kind of combine it. I would say probably emotional, just because of the both digital and visual kind of evoke reactions, so that it's more in that vein.
I think it's like emotional, and I would even say, I know that it's such an overused word, but just empathy. So maybe I'll put like emotional, because I think there has to be kind of such a human component to it that we often forget in our meetings. Like the fact that we're meeting with other human beings, we just need to understand where they're coming from and have that perspective.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, basically I'm one of those crying girls who's trying to figure out how to make that possible.
At least you're in front, not being squished from behind.
Yeah, I wrestle my way up to the front. I try my best.
Yeah.
And it's important. You need both digital and visual and this empathy part to overcome those challenges of cross-functional teams and distributed work. So think about trying to convey a really complex idea or a process to a team, especially when you're on camera or you can't really use hand motions or something like that, or visuals. You really have a limited capability to accomplish or convey your message. And so I think visuals are incredibly powerful. So before I was a digital worker, visuals were actually my first love, I say. Mm-hmm. And I think we talked about this, Robert, but a lot of my time when I was in school, I was really bored in my classes. So I used doodling as a way to just kind of pass the time. But then it became this really powerful tool for me as I transitioned to work, because
I do like the barfing cloud, by the way. I do want to mention that.
Yeah, that's like the Instagram thing. I'm like curious to see what else the heck is in here. There's some pretty funny little things in here, but this is basically what my notebooks looked like. It was just not filled with content, but just and it didn't have any meaning, but it was just a really fun way for me to pass time.
Who was Dylan O'Brien?
Dylan O'Brien, I actually pulled this, I'll be honest, I pulled this from offline, so I do not have a Dylan O'Brien crush.
Okay, I'm very much into detail, so I'm going into, okay, I see Neptune, Pluto, I see the planet.
Before I picked this too, I like had to look at it very quickly and make sure that there was no inappropriate images on there too. So if you find one, let me know.
I wouldn't think anything less of you, Hailey. Everyone has their barfing blood cloud moment that's up there. So
I think it's supposed to be a rainbow. Well, I guess it's not a rainbow. I guess it is barf, but yeah.
It could be barfing rainbows. It just you didn't put the different stripes of darkness in there.
No, it's but yeah, have some fun like playing I Spy with that one. But but basically what I needed to my doodles actually served a purpose later on when I came to work, because I was having this problem where I fell asleep in meetings, and an executive would be giving a presentation, and it was this 150 page slide deck, and it was completely disengaging. So I would start falling asleep and I would get kind of an elbow from my teammate. So what I started doing was taking visual notes. So rather than doodling just anything, I started trying to use visuals to capture the ideas and the concepts that were mentioned in the meeting. Mm-hmm. And this became a powerful way for me to, I guess it had a couple of really big benefits. So first of all, I did stay awake in my meetings. It also helped me remember the information from the meeting a lot better. And when I shared the visuals I created with the presenter, with my team, they knew that I heard them and that I understood what they were trying to say. And now, of course, I avoided falling asleep in my meeting. I didn't get some elbows from my coworkers anymore. And I really love visual language. It's incredibly powerful, but I think it's important to note that I'm not an artist. By no means do I look at this as a means of interpretation or expression. It's really a means of survival, a cure for my boring meetings, or not mine, but other boring meetings. I think people think it's artwork, but if you break it down, it's simply lines and dots and squiggles. These simple shapes that you see here can be used to make any sort of larger, bigger idea. So if you can create a line, a dot, an angle, a spiral, then you are a visual communicator. And I actually want you guys to try this in this canvas. So I'm gonna summon you guys again. So you're here in this workspace. Now on the left-hand side, there's a little draw function. This little pencil on the bottom left of that menu, Robert, you might want to toggle over it, is draw.
Right there.
Yep. And what you guys can do is in this space next to the picture, I want you to take the pen and practice some of this stuff. And it's not, I'm warning you, it's not going to be an artistic work, and that's okay. Just practice drawing some of these shapes and having some fun.
So are we doing doodle birds at all, or are we just basically just drawing things?
Just drawing. If you would like to do a doodle bird, Robert, I'd love you
to. No, I don't want to get too deep in the concept. I'd rather and by the way, for those who want learning more about the tool itself, there's some other, once you choose the drawing tool, there's some other aspects here where you can do a highlighter, you can do an eraser, you can actually change the color if you click here. But you can do different types of lines. So you can do an ultra fine line where you can go woo, and it actually looks like it's a very thin one. It's like a little trackpad thing. Then if you want to, you can go to a fine one and it's a little thicker, so you can layer it on top of there, right? And then you got the medium one, which is a bit thicker. So now you're actually doing layers. And then get into the highlighter, which is even bigger and it's slightly transparent. So yeah, somebody's already doing doodle birds. There you go, Squid.
I know Kim is absolutely killing it right now.
and I'm just, all I'm good for is the atmosphere. That's it.
No, that's the thing. That's such the beauty of visual collaboration and visual work is you can just you can make anything and it feels very playful and very fun. I think that anything from a simple sketch or a concept to a diagram, it tells such a better story than words ever could. And the shame of it is when we grew up, we used a lot of these visuals to convey and understand our world. But then we went to school and we learned how to write and to read, and that became our main mode of communication.
It also could be something where, and I've read about this and I kind of agree with it, where it's de-emphasized. It's not that we never used it. It's just that our environment did not really reflect a need for it, like outside of like other things that are basically being part of it. So it's kind of like that. It's where it's just latent. It's just like it's like anything else. If you speak Spanish for a certain time, then you know it until you stop using it, and kind of going down that route.
Yeah, and then you start getting uncomfortable with it, and you think, well, if I'm not an artist, then I don't draw. And then you think, well, what's the closest visual I can get to writing that's so comfortable? And that's PowerPoint. And then you do PowerPoints, and then people are falling asleep in your meetings. So it's just this vicious cycle that leads us to what happens in bad meetings.
Yeah, my own son, basically, he took, when we had chalk out, he would basically write all the numbers all the way down from the street on every, he would put a number on every block. And he would try to see how far he could go, like up to, I think it was like 262. He went all the way down to like 2 blocks down to the park. And then when he was done, he was done. He never went back to it again. So it was the oddest thing. We had all the chalk colored. I helped out with it, but yeah, it was one of those things where it was just kind of a exploration in that, but it hasn't really stuck with him because now he's interested in math and other things related to that.
Right. And it's something, I mean, even coming back to sketching now, it's sometimes a challenge. If it's been a while, I'm uncomfortable with it, but it's something that, like any kind of collaboration or digital work, you just need to practice and be okay with being a little bit vulnerable.
Yes, I agree.
I want to make sure too that you guys, so you've kind of had some fun sketching, you've done some squiggles and dots, and so I want to kind of try something else too, and this is a little bit of mural practice. So what you're going to do is use the icons. So there's a little star right here on the left-hand menu, or the images. There's like a little rectangle. Looks like there's a picture or a mountain in there. And you're going to search for the word collaboration. So if you type in the word collaboration to the images or the icons, I want you to search for an image and pick one and drag it onto the canvas. So, and if you're feeling super creative, Kim, you were doing an awesome job sketching. Feel free to sketch it as well. I think our anonymous B added something in there too. I'll add something in here too. I love the rum burgundy. That's so great. So it's fascinating seeing lots of options for the word collaboration and what you guys chose. And it's fascinating because if you see, we each have a different interpretation for what one word collaboration means. So it is a really abstract concept, but imagine what that would look like if you're trying to work with different people and different functions, maybe in different locations and from different culture backgrounds, trying to get through a whole process together. So visuals are a great way to shift the way you connect information and share ideas with your team. Let me take you guys through an example of what that would look like. So, and let me summon you guys again. So my team, I, for example, love kicking off projects with this exercise, this method called a concept poster. And what we do is we think about a concept, an idea, and I give the team time to develop what looks kind of like a magazine cover for what they envision success looking like in the project, or what the output should be for the end of a project. And basically what they do is they have time to build the magazine cover. Then they pitch the idea to the team, assessing what's the big idea, what are some of the risks and some of the challenges. And ultimately, they vote on which magazine cover or concept poster they want to take forward as the overlying vision for the project. Mm-hmm. And it's great because it gets people together in a shared space to create this. I mean, we could have worked in a workshop like this and just typed up one sentence to say what the vision of our project is, but this adds so much richness and color to the conversation. It also helps create a sense of ownership over the success of the project. So even if I made this magazine cover and then I shared it with them later, it wouldn't be as meaningful or as exciting to them, and something that we want to reference going through the project. Plus, it really makes collaboration and visual work more engaging and playful. How much more would you want to see or have to work with a Word document or a requirements document than work with a storyboard or something like this? So it really brings a lot of life and fun into your work. So if you're working on a distributed team, a cross-functional team, these visuals provide a lot of clarity and context that a team needs to address a problem and to drive success together. Any questions or anything to add, Robert, or our anonymous animals over here?
They can. If for those that are in Zoom right now, you can go ahead and pipe in some questions in chat or the Q&A if you have any. For those that are watching on YouTube, you can do the same. I'm monitoring the live feed. So if you have any questions for Hailey, please put them in.
Awesome. And I'm curious what everyone else had for the rest of their collaboration. Nice. Love it. All right, so I want to get to that last part, collaboration, kind of the final piece of our digital and visual collaboration. Let's bring it back all together. So we meet, we co-create, we solve a problem together. We may be collaborating from different teams and parts of the world, but different is not a barrier. It's really a key to successful collaboration. And I think it seems simple enough. You get people together at the start of a meeting, and at the end, you're supposed to walk out having created something new or having solved a problem, or, as you mentioned, Robert, making a decision. But for those of us who are hosting in-person meetings or online meetings, we know it's really difficult to actually own the room. True collaboration online or in person requires a shift in how we approach working together. So we need to develop our own collaborative confidence. So collaborative confidence, it means that we enter a space with other people and we're ready to navigate that mess and uncertainty. When teams have a low collaborative confidence, they feel really unprepared, misaligned, and unsure. The meeting host or the facilitator doesn't provide a clear direction and a purpose for the meeting. If you have high collaborative confidence, or if your team does, it means that the teammates have set expectations for the meeting and they have a plan. But if the plan needs to change, they're comfortable pivoting and shifting direction if that's necessary. The team also knows why they're meeting and what needs to happen to succeed. So on the canvas, I'd love for you to think about your own collaborative confidence, be honest, really reflect on that. And what you're gonna do is grab one of these purple, and I'm just gonna summon you guys so you see what I'm seeing. Grab one of these purple sticky notes, and you're gonna drag it across this scale here. So if you feel like you and your team have low collaborative confidence, that's here. And if you have high collaborative confidence, over here. So you can kind of drag it and drop it.
And bounce on the line like this. Boing.
Yeah, I love that.
So in my context, I'm thinking it could probably be with regards to just, yeah, because for me, I work as an independent. So for the most part, mine tends to be relatively here.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, most of the time I set up things just exactly how I described it before. So I'm usually not too worried. If
Mhm.
there's any kind of hand holding that needs to be done by individuals, I'll handle that on the side even before we get together if I'm aware of it.
Nice. And you have lots of practice too. I mean, you are an example of someone who I think practices a lot, but is also very open and very flexible to change if it needs to happen. You're willing to, okay, what do we need to do to pivot and to change, and how can we make sure it's successful if the meaning of success has changed in the meeting?
Right. And also just basically being open to situations where people are struggling to understand. And sometimes it's just interpretation. They hear certain language and they think it means something, and you want to make sure that you're both on the same page about it. That tends to clear things out right away rather than concentrate on the action. You know, talk about like the underlying motivation or how they got to where they were. And especially when it comes to collaborating online. Some people just are working with older computers, or they're very much used to face, and they have an aversion to this because it's just naturally foreign to them. You just have
Right.
to learn how to bridge all of that.
Absolutely. And I think back to when we were talking about the elements of digital and visual, just that having that empathy of, okay, well, I have the best tech and the best machines and I'm comfortable with the technology, but somebody else might not. So how do I meet them where they are and ensure that everyone is successful or as comfortable as possible working together?
Yep. And sometimes that just involves them having a conversation with them. Kind of like
Mm-hmm.
if they're in the dark about what they're doing, just be human and just say, okay, well, you know, let's not try to solve it per se, but let's kind of walk through the experience, and then I can kind of like course correct as we go.
Right. Exactly. So you're meeting them where they are. And that's awesome. That's a great point, a great idea to kind of set expectations before the high pressure meeting comes in to
Yeah.
they're comfortable. So
Welcome, reframe the engagement as just basically like getting dressed,
right.
really. Just like, okay, well, let's see, do you have like have you got your pants? The first thing, do you have your jacket on? Do you know where all your clothes are? Like, but not to use those terms. It's like, okay, how's your bandwidth? Like, what kind of connection do you have?
Mhm.
Are you working with a company computer? Do you usually use something else to connect? Do a little bit of like research, like user research on the person, and then set the stage for how they want to engage, so that they know when they have to engage you on certain things that are not going well. If they have open questions, what's the path to kind of getting your attention? All of that.
I love that analogy too, the kind of the the getting dressed. And so it's like getting dressed for the digital world,
Yeah.
for digital meetings. So
You could say
um,
like you're putting on your superhero costume. Do you have your cape? Do you have your
yeah.
mask?
Oh my gosh. And Robert, we owe you a cape also. I don't know if you saw, we had capes in our last conference and they were
I'm fine with a t-shirt. I don't trust me. My kid has toys, my closet has clothes and items that I either wear for seasonal use, or I'll wear the sweater because I'm talking to Hailey Temple and I want it to look like I'm actually like, warm, which I am. But yeah, yeah.
I
Hey,
love
put the cape. You know who should really use the cape is David Chin. Like, he's somebody that I think can wear a cape very well.
he's amazing. Yeah, he is a superhero
Yes, I
for
agree.
so many ways. Shout out to David Chin. And I want to make sure, I think a couple things that you mentioned, Robert, were about kind of like level setting, getting to where people are to get ready for collaboration is really important. I think I also want to share a couple more tips that I have for you in terms of boosting your own collaborative confidence and your team's collaborative confidence. But I mentioned I don't want this to be just me sharing all my limited knowledge with you. Honestly, I think it'd be way more engaging to have you guys also share your perspectives. So I want us to think about and brainstorm, how might we eliminate unproductive and boring meetings? So thinking back to your experience prepping for the Global Virtual Design Sprint or your last 2 weeks of meetings, think about how you could eliminate all those negative aspects for your meetings and make them more engaging. And in the classic brainstorming fashion, one idea per sticky note. You're going for quantity, so over quality, so no judgment, just whatever comes to mind, put on one of these sticky notes and start sharing out some of your perspectives on making digital and visual collaboration successful.
Can I get a timer?
Oh yeah. Okay, that's a great point. So I'm gonna go with 2 minutes to start. That'll be our first round. And let's see what I'll share some of my wisdom as you guys are going.
All right. Quantity over quality, correct?
I love it. All right, so first, and I'm not gonna, so state why, what's the purpose of the meeting, and let people know why you invited them to the meeting versus somebody else. It's important that people understand like what's the value they're meant to contribute in that meeting and what decisions need to be made walking out of that meeting to make this successful. Make real-time collaborations short and sweet. I think a lot of people feel they need to have a full day workshop to have something productive come out at the end, but you can see time boxing, limiting the time people work together and making that be really highly engaging actually leads to better productivity rather than being stuck in a room or on a digital space. With that in mind, you also want to make sure that you embrace the time between meetings or in different time schedules. So I mentioned if I'm working on the West Coast and my teammates working in Europe, I'll get some work done and be able to hand it off to him for his work day. And that actually makes the when you're productive and just makes things really smooth. So when you're setting up your own meetings, think about giving participants homework or things to complete between the meetings so that they are starting to get their work done. And finally, Robert, you mentioned this one and I love it. Just remember that we're people. We need time to learn new tools and get comfortable. We also need time to decompress after long work days. And in order for us to be creative, we need to rest and we need to embrace the differences that we have. We need to connect as well. So make sure we're respecting people's time and make sure you're being present to people because you've asked them to join you in a space. And so we give them an opportunity to contribute. Empathy and flexibility are really the foundation for team trust. So, all right, time is up. Boom, perfect. All right, let me see what you guys said. All right, so I think Tim, you said set a goal, right? Make it immersive and engaging and right, perfect. Set next steps. What do you guys need to do after the meeting? Perfect. Don't call them meetings, call them sessions. I like that one a lot because people have this mental model of a boring meeting. So if it's a session, it's a lot more engaging. Make sure you have an agenda, right? State the outcome. Don't send calendar, and that's an interesting one. Post the session in a forum or a whiteboard.
Correct. Don't ever populate somebody else's calendar with an invite. Basically put it on a general space that people know about, and then if they want to come, they can, especially for informational ones.
Okay, so rather than saying you have to be here, it's almost like how do I entice you to join this conversation in a way?
Right. So that, yeah, exactly. And then it becomes more of an ask. So you still respect the person's time.
Mm-hmm. And this one's interesting too, Robert. So you can only invite one person. They bring people with them if they influence the decision.
Correct.
Okay, very cool. You must pay $10 to a group pizza fund to hold the meeting. Okay, so these might be some ways that might be a great way to say, like, if we want to have less meetings, how do we make sure that meetings are all productive? Yep.
Hit their wallet.
Yes. I like that someone else did one where if you were talking in a meeting, you have to hold a 10-pound weight.
That's interesting.
You have to hold the weight.
Yeah.
And also just, saying like, this is the amount of time we're going to meet. After 5 hours, that's it. We're not having more meetings. So making the meetings truly count.
Right. Or basically, if you're a manager, somebody in leadership, you have 5 hours per week that you can allocate to meeting time. So if you have regular like team meetings, there's 1 hour. If you schedule another meeting with somebody else, that's another hour. And then that's all you have. And that I have experimented with that, where it was also people that were on a project team did this, and they actually wanted to shorten it down to 3. They wanted to make it so it was only 3 per week, and it forced them to have hallway conversations, to do like one-on-one conversations, to make sure they understood everything, to make liberal use of offline tools like Mural or other things to kind of leave their information, post up in Slack or in Basecamp. It really does change the dynamic of how people communicate.
Definitely. And it takes you away, reduces that 31 hours to that you're in an unproductive meeting. So hopefully, and I appreciate too, Robert, that you're the last point, streaming this meeting. So if somebody wants to watch it later, they can as well. And that's
right.
a way to give people time to work in their own time and space.
That's correct. Especially if you have a development team on the other side of the world or a digital team that's in like Argentina, and you still want to convey to them what happened, you can do transcription of that meeting after it's done. You can basically use a third-party tool to do it, and people don't have to watch the meeting. They can read. They can scan for particular things that call their name out.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So these are all great. Robbie, you always have awesome knowledge and wisdom for us, and I appreciate it. So these are just hopefully some things that you guys who are watching can take away too. And so I want to make sure that thinking about all of these different ideas, next time you're in a meeting, I want you to think back to some of the concepts that you shared today or that we've curated here. It's great because now that if you are in this canvas right now, you can access it whenever you want and look back at things for inspiration. And we can also share the link with you guys if you're watching it through the live stream or you're watching the recording. So you can learn how this works. Mm-hmm. Also, for those of you who maybe never used Mural before, you know how the tool works. And so hopefully you feel more comfortable using it and also sharing with other people on your team. But even better than that, for me, it's about finding other people who are in this same mindset of shifting work that you are. So if you feel like this is a better way of working, then you're not alone. You can call on Robert, me, anyone really who's here today or who's going to be watching and say, I'm having a challenge or somebody doesn't understand how we need to do this. How do I help them and get them to engage in this way?
Yeah, in the future, what I'm reading and seeing about is that this is going to be a complement to AI. So basically, there's going to be something where you may not be looking at the mural at one point, but you may have some AI kind of working within the mural to update the board on things that are happening within, like, say, a team or happenings within your project, maybe some things that influence it. So it basically populates a whiteboard like this with information. And it won't update you every single time it happens, but it basically gives you a kind of a menu of what you need to know when you come back to the mural so that you don't have to do any cognitive catch up with some things that are related to what you're concentrating on. There's been some experimentation with this in Microsoft and some other places. So it's the idea that there is a helper that's working in the backside to, like, for development, let you know when certain processes are running, when those are going to be done, but does it in a visual way like this, so you can basically see everything that's happening. And it just basically just continues on to the right or vertically down below. And literally it's a digital diary in its truest sense of what kind of progress is going on.
Right. Oh, that would be so cool, just to be able to convey that information and make it a very natural, bringing it back to a very natural part of our work.
Becomes an organic extension of the and instead of doing these digital snapshots of people's exposure to the information that they have at the time, it starts becoming more of a narrative that involves things that are both human and digital, and it kind of blends them in. So literally it's like your own digital news feed, only now it's more aligned with the happenings that are going on with your particular project.
That'd be awesome. I mean, that would definitely transform. That's kind of the future of work and where things are going, which is super exciting.
And if you have Google Glass or something else where you have a visual, that you have a physical thing, then you augment it by having layers. So maybe there's like different layers that are going on with something that you're concerned about, and you're seeing the flat canvas, but then you flip on something on the hardware, and now you have multi-dimensions. So now you can basically flip between, like, things that are happening in the short term, long term, medium term, see how they both all correlate, and do it that way. The future of work.
Like, this kind of stuff is just crazy that, you used to run on chalkboards or something that wasn't possible, but now we can work in these different dimensions. So, I mean, I think even just some of the simple things that we mentioned today in the talk about, like simply setting an agenda. Like you don't have to change meetings in your work. You don't have to have Google Glass, even though it'd be awesome to. You can just say, like, I'm going to set a purpose for my meeting, and that's going to change work. People coming together.
Exactly. But you can do with some of many of the things that we've suggested in here, based on your experience and mine, are things that essentially people can carry through and work with.
Right, for sure. And I realize that we're top of the end of of our time together. So I want to make sure that for those of you who are with us and in the Canvas, I'd love to challenge you to think about anything that you learned today. What's something that you can apply into your work in the next week? Whether that's trying to host a digital meeting with a teammate, or using icons and sketches to capture notes. I'd love for you to write down 1 or 2 things that you're going to do in this next week after this meeting to shift that work.
Really quick, since we were talking about Q&A before, and we asked people to put them in, Kim had to run to another meeting, so she was gone at the top of the hour. But Laura Krikala and I want to make sure that I do really fast tell everyone what she's all about, because that's what I like to do. She is a program coordinator in people and organizational development. She's from Bamberg, Germany, over at A-Train. And her question for you is can you upload more icons like you can using PowerPoint, for example?
You can, yeah. So what you can do, and I'll have you demo this really quickly, Robert, is if you click on the image icon on the left-hand toolbar.
Over here?
I'm sorry, the pictures, so adding images, so the little rectangle. Yep.
Yeah.
And then you go to upload images right below the search bar. So then you can do from your computer or from Dropbox.
Is this going to expand anytime soon, so that you're going to include more utilities besides Dropbox?
I hope so. I don't know if it is, because I mentioned like Microsoft Teams, for example, would be a great way to do that. We do have an integration with Microsoft Teams to add content in there too. Okay. That would be great to have. And I know we do have a new integrations lead who's working on stuff like this. So.
And I use the upload images a lot, especially when I want to put in things related to like the GVDS or the different kind of activities that I'm going on about, to bring people up to speed with what we're doing on the program. So yeah, I've used it a lot. Yeah,
and even the Noun project has so many different icons. So if there is, I would be surprised if you couldn't find something that fits what you're looking to describe. But of course, if you have brand specific icons, you can add that there.
So I have a question, Hailey. How long did this take you to create, and when did you create it?
I created this whole canvas, you mean, or even the talk and everything?
Let's do the whole thing. How long did it take you to create the canvas and then also the presentation?
The canvas took me, once I decided how I wanted to visualize it, maybe 2 hours total, less.
And that was done yesterday, or did you do it over the course? Wow.
Yeah, I did yesterday. Yeah, it was maybe less than 2 hours if I'm thinking about it, because I also was working on it, going and catching up on other things, coming back to it. But yeah, really, it didn't take too long, and even copying the sticky notes and stuff saved so much time.
Is this going to be similar to the presentation that's coming up for you in, I believe it's November? You have some engagement coming up, correct?
Yeah, so this is what I'm intending on sharing and talking about in the conference, and it's going to be actually an in-person session, so with about 300 people. So I'm trying to think about if it would be, and some of them probably won't have any exposure to Mural. So my thought is this feasible from the perspective of people being comfortable using Mural, and also having 300 people on Wi-Fi trying to use it in the same place at once? Yeah, that's been a big challenge of mine, thinking
about. May I make a suggestion?
Please do.
Do you have exposure to any of the participants ahead of time, or are you just going to basically show up with your presentation and it's go?
I can ask for exposure, or even to the volunteers, because there's going to be volunteers at the conference as well.
Because I think that would be your pool of users, and especially if you can engage them early on around what you'd like them to do with the start here, with the other things, or if not the volunteers, because I know that you were asking questions specifically about digital collaboration in meetings, seeing if it would be okay if you did a general call out for people that wanted to be part of your session that were into, that were in that space, like they basically have some digital meeting background, have kind of, are in charge of kind of organizing meetings and could basically inform the space in a meaningful way. I don't know how you could make the inquiry beyond the volunteer core, but it's something to basically ask the question and say, like, do you think we can curate an interactive 6 to 10 person team that we can give them a link and then they can basically like interact with on their laptop while they're there?
Oh, I would really I love this, and I'm just real time adding ideas for this. So kind of like you said, call for people before the session. Okay.
Yeah, and if worst comes to worst, you can basically say, okay, let me a raise of hands if you are someone that does X, Y, and Z. And then you could say, like, how many of you brought your laptop with you today? And then so, okay, well, if you'd like, I'd like you to take part in this interactive session I'm going to be doing. And then it would be more logistics for you to do it in session and to kind of handle all of the, my internet doesn't seem to work with the Wi-Fi, right? So that you can avoid that situation if you do it ahead of time. But
yeah, that would be great. And also, I imagine it's also in a way staging people. So not that I think it'd be helpful to boost other people's confidence too when they see other people working in that way. They think, okay, well, I could probably do that too. And if they want to jump in, they can. If they want to sit back, just listen, that's another option.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened just yesterday with the GVDS and the Mural Experience Lab. We were basically showing how a Lightning Decision Jam is done virtually. And it was a way of showing how people worked, albeit it was fast, but it's the same example. You just basically show people that may or may not have never have done with Mural before, how they acclimate to it and what questions they have. But it's a real-time example at the same time you're going through your content.
Right, right. Oh, I really like that idea, Robert. Thank you, because I was scratching my head at the logistics of this for a large group like that.
I do a lot of organizing in my spare time, like getting.
Yeah, you dabble in it.
Yeah, a little bit. I kind of like I think about it and just bring some people into the room and then we talk about stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, you're amazing. And basically everyone at Mural is your #1 fan, and it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mural too. It's been the foundation of the GVDS, a lot of what I do online with like personal development, so I'm all for it. The vacuum monster seems to be coming up the stairs, so I'm going to end the session before it surrounds everything out in like, loud sounds. But if you want to find, I'm going to stop my share really fast so I can actually like look at some of my other stuff. So if you want to find out more about Hailey Temple, she is one of those folks that you can do a Google search and find everything. But for those that don't want to go that route, you can find her on LinkedIn. On her Twitter, it's basically her first name, last name. It's Hailey Temple. On Instagram, I'm going to repeat it again. It's Hailey Temple. On Medium, wouldn't you know it? It's Hailey Temple. And if you want to look for her TEDx Syracuse talk from way back when, you'll have to do a Google search because there's no way I'm going to spell out the entire YouTube address. It would just be too pedantic. But Hailey, I do want to thank you for coming to the session and giving an awesome presentation. I didn't mean to kind of have you spend 2 hours last night curating it and making it happen, but I'm glad you did because it got me thinking about like all the different aspects of digital, working remotely and working within constructive meetings and sessions and all of that. So hopefully it was of value to you and as well as to the listening audience and the watching audience that will be viewing this in a future date. But I really, really want to thank you for coming on and doing this with me.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, it's always a blast to work with you, Robert, but also just giving me kind of a time, but you gave me a chance to time box myself and say, I need to get this done for GVDS. And now I'm a month before my conference and feeling really good about it. And of course I'm going to tweak it, but I'm super pumped to be there and share this story with everybody. So thank you.
And you broke ground on the content too. So at least you have a starting point for that. And then you can say, okay, well, now that I went through it, I kind of need to change this, move this around. So you'll be hopefully you'll be in better shape for then too.
Exactly. So yay. Thank you.
No problem. I'm here to help. I like helping.
I really appreciate it.
All right, Hailey, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you again for coming on the session. For those of you who are watching on YouTube and on Zoom, thank you so much for coming by. Do a little bit of a wave before we disconnect, and take care of yourself, okay? I'll talk to y'all later.
Take care. Bye, Robert.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.